Right, in the previous video, I've done a quick walkthrough through the river revision notes, which you need to take time to read. That will cover the easy to medium questions, either simply labelling through to labelling, then describing a process like erosion processes or how a waterfall might be formed with diagrams, or how a meander is formed, etc. Upper, middle, lower river, those processes. What we're going to do now is look at an example of a 7 point question. Okay, really important. None of this can be done without good revision. For a named river you have studied, you have all studied rivers. You should have a named river already in your mind, whether it's one from Cognity, from the Save My Exams revision notes that I've given you, or it's from the textbook or the book I bought you. You need to have a named river. Okay. But you don't just name the river. I'll give you more in a minute. Okay. Now, as we know, 7 point questions are not 7 points for 7 marks. If your statements include limited detail, we don't really describe them anything, okay, you're not going to do very well. If you use a named example and give some developed statements to describe how they might be attempting to manage the flood, you can get a maximum of probably five, really. It says 4 to 6 there, okay. But to get seven, use very clear named examples. Your information is comprehensive and accurate. These are statements again, they're not bullet points, which describe the attempt to manage flooding, including specific place references. Okay. Now, some of the content that could come into this answer, because the question is about describe attempts to manage flooding. Well, different ways to manage flooding are dredging, making pulling material out the bottom of the river to deepen it so it can contain more water. You can also channel straighten. So instead of it winding round, make it move the water quicker. And often, as you straighten, you raise the banks artificially. Hard engineering this is to stop it spilling out of its channel. Problem is that water's moving really fast now downstream to be somebody else's problem. Okay, levees. We know that levees can be natural, a natural process of flooding, but humans actually can then construct artificial levees. Overflow channels, you know, perhaps more soft engineering where you divert high flood waters coming down a river quickly, you divert some of it into an area that you're going to allow to flood naturally. Mauritius, that could be sugarcane fields or spillways. A spillway is like a second route for the river. So it just diverts water away. It diverts water away to a second channel to try and keep more into a channel than one channel would, thus not overspilling, not flooding, damaging a local town. Because you'd only do this if there was infrastructure that could get damaged. Dams and reservoirs, afforestation, the drainage basin itself, slowing down the movement of water through afforestation. If there's no trees, in Mauritius, we burn the sugarcane. We shouldn't. We should leave the green blanket because that will slow down water's movement towards the river. Anything that slows it down, okay? But place-specific references, location details, places along the river, specific details and cost methods. This is what I mean. You don't just name a place in a case study, okay? So you could say, my case study is the River Ganges. They have done this, 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 and this. You're going to lose points straight away. Look at how this example this presents the case study. It's the River Ganges. The River Ganges is 2,510 kilometers long. We're showing knowledge here. It flows through India and Bangladesh, where it becomes the River Padma and joins the Brahmaputra River. So you're really introducing where this is geographically. The population living in the area drained by the Ganges is over 650 million people. You're introducing your case study. You're building the scene. This is significant. This is one of the world's greatest rivers. 650 million people live in this drainage basin. I mean, it's incredible. So we're now seeing the human interaction. The Ganges has its source in the Himalayan mountains, and the river waters enter the sea at the Bay of Bengal. So it comes out of the Himalayas, runs through kind of northern India, through Varanasi, Bangladesh, okay, then out into the sea. One of the world's great rivers, very linked to Hinduism and other stuff. This is a great introduction. You've got some data. You don't just say the River Ganges. You really introduce it, okay? There's only four sentences there. Four short sentences tell us a lot. then the content to answer the question. Remember to answer the question. For an AIM review, have described attempts to manage flooding. So now, that with your case study, what have they been doing on the Ganges in an attempt to manage flooding? Okay. Examples of paragraphs could be included to get maximum marks. There's three developed paragraphs there, three developed statements. Bangladesh, one of those countries the river runs through, is a low economically developed country, which means that the country lacks the money for large schemes which would reduce the impact of flooding. They suffer terribly from flooding because of these rivers coming through, and it's quite low lying as well. Okay, it's quite a flat country. In fact, a lot of the country could be considered to actually be like the delta of the Ganges or the Brahmaputra. The Flood Action Plan, FAP, was funded. So that Bangladesh has a flood action plan, and it was funded by the World Bank and a number of more economically developed countries. The methods used to reduce flooding include monitoring flood levels and the construction of levees embankments, which increase the capacity of the river and reduce risk of flooding. So they're monitoring it, okay? It's really important that you know when it's going to flood so people can take mitigating action, often to leave, okay? It's an alarm system. It's soft engineering in a way, just a warning system. Know what's coming. Okay. Don't just wake up to find that it's happened. But they're constructing levees and embankments. They're artificially hard engineering these structures to keep the water into the channels. Okay. Although that might have problems further downstream because more water's going down there. Okay. The flood action plan also includes building 5,000 flood shelters, which reduce the impact on people as they're able to go to a place out of the floods, reducing death, impact, and injury. So, really, this isn't really about dealing with the flooding, because it is going to flood there. It's about dealing with the problems associated with the flooding. Throughout my life, I've always seen floods in Bangladesh and people standing in miles and miles of water on roofs, helpless. Okay. But part of this, they're addressing 5,000 shelters where people can go when it's happening, where they can be safe, they can get food, shelter, medication. Okay. Even though that their homes have probably been submerged in their fields. So this is about management. Many parts of the project were never completed, including the dams and floodwater storage areas, due to inadequate funding and corruption. That's a shame. And 8 million people were forced to move accommodation because of the FAP constructions. I guess people, very populous country, Bangladesh, a lot of people living along the river, and they're putting in these huge levees. They probably had to move people. So that's a controversial thing. 8 million is a lot of people to have moved here. Okay. And unfortunately, not all the flood alleviation program has worked, possibly due to corruption and mismanagement of money. So certain dams and floodwater storage areas, areas where they're allowing to flood naturally, soft engineering, have not been fully developed. Okay, that's a real shame. Okay, now there you go. You've got some good details of the river and some good details of how they've attempted to manage flooding, which shows pros and cons in a way. Yes, they've done it. Certain things must be working. They've provided shelters, but at the same time, it's not fully complete. They're not going to get rid of the flood in a place like Bangladesh, but they're trying to manage it better with pros and cons. Okay. Example of a 7-point river question.